Hey everyone, it's Cris Chico, and today I have an exciting YouTube interview here. Not that they're not all exciting, but today is really exciting because we're going to talk about my favorite topic of virtual wholesaling. And I've got here with me Greg Helbeck, and Helbeck is you're in San Diego right now, right,
Yeah,
Greg?
San Diego. Yep.
Yeah, he is a young whippersnapper because he makes me feel really old and he has a lot more hair than I do. So we're not going to hold that against him. But he is a virtual wholesaler and he operates in two different markets. He's doing a lot of very interesting things. And so we're going to be discussing all things virtual wholesaling. My goal today is to squeeze as much out of his head so that he immediately passes out after this interview. All right. That is what I'm going to try to do. So be prepared for it. I hope you, did you break, if in doubt, if when you're doing this interview, if you feel you could just take some aluminum foil, put it over your head, that would protect yourself. Uh, but I'm happy that you and I are here together. So thank you very much for being here on my YouTube channel, Greg.
I've been looking forward to this since we got it booked last week.
Perfect. So I just asked you this question right before we got on the call, and you've been in the real estate investing business for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So did you start real estate investing when you were like 11 or 12 or
what? Yeah, I graduated kindergarten, and then so I got in the game when I was 20-ish. So I'm 24, almost 25 now. Okay. So basically what happened was, to give you the long and short, I was playing competitive hockey. That didn't work out. I wanted to go to the pros. It wasn't good enough to make it, quite frankly. My parents made me go to college. So I went to community college and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I hated having a job. I always hated lifeguard. I worked at the golf course. I hated that stuff. I hated being somewhere, having someone else tell me what to do. I never liked it. So I ended up getting a postcard in the mail about a seminar. I went to one of those guru seminars.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to like the hotel ballroom or whatever. Spent $2,000, so it wasn't too like one of those $90,000 coaching programs or whatever. So did that, and basically took me like 9 months after I was done with that seminar to do a deal. And I did a wholesale deal and made like $1,000, nothing. And I had no money at the time, so I started putting out bandit signs. That was my way to get leads. Did a few deals here and there off bandit signs. Then I had some money to start mailing. And this is when mail wasn't crazy saturated. So this is like, 3.5 years ago. And then from there, I started doing deals in my New York market, which was tough at the time because there's a lot of barriers to entry over there. So then this was a couple of years ago, I was like, well, what if I could do this somewhere else? So kind of out of my, I decided to go into Dallas out of all areas, which is kind of competitive too. But I found a strategy in Dallas that was really, at the time, no one was doing it. I can get into that if you want. And, I started doing like 3 to 4 deals a month remotely without ever seeing these houses. And like spreads were huge, like, $20,000 to $30,000 deals. And I was like, oh my God. And then from there, I just kind of started doing deals in New York. Where I am.
So, by the way, guys, my daughter gave me a code, so you might hear some coughing. I will survive this interview, so don't worry about that. But you might hear me coughing, and I'll try to mute the microphone when I do that. Just out of curiosity, would you mind? I got a couple of things I want to talk about. Would you mind sharing? What was it you said you were doing in Dallas, a strategy that was working at the time but no longer is working?
It still works, but I kind of pulled all the leads so basically what I was doing is I was finding every list has vacant houses on it, right? So you can take a look and scrub it. I was pulling all the vacant houses off of usually the tax delinquent list. And there was just so many of these, like there was probably 700 leads at the time. And I never went into that market. So I had all the leads were new. I've never reached out to them. So over time, I had basically all those leads, and there's only so many of those in each market because they're really distressed. They're all in my CRM now. So like they're still there, we still get deals from them from follow-up, but I kind of tapped the well out after a couple of years of doing that in Dallas. So it wasn't working that well because all those distressed properties were already like in my database because that was my like core marketing niche. But those deals, if you can get those deals in any market, vacant properties, like Larry talks about this all the time, Larry Higgins, like vacant properties with tax delinquencies or mortgage foreclosures, usually the owners are dead. You can make 6 figures, like not typical, but you could make 6 figures on some of these deals because you can get them at such a good price because you're usually giving up on them. So
But I guess at that time also, not a whole lot of people were sending out direct mail. So then now, even the people that are not directly trying to find those people, they're likely getting mail, or they're likely getting found out because of the skip tracing and the cold calling and everything else.
yes, and these stackers, list stacking, and all that stuff made it a little more competitive. But we're still doing deals that way for sure. But yeah, that was really my way into the virtual game. Is I remember my first virtual deal. It was like a real pain in the ass because it was like a title issue, and the sellers were fighting. I ended up closing it, and it was a $30,000 spread, and I split that with someone because I JV'd it. And I remember just like I was in my room at New York at the time. I never saw the house, never met the seller, never met the buyer, didn't really do much, to be honest with you. I generated a lead and got a house under contract over the phone. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is like real, everyone says you have to go see the property. And after that deal, I was like, all right, I'm going to take this thing to the moon. And it's just like people, It's
So
like,
now you started in New York, right?
I did start in New York. Yeah. So this is in Texas. That was when I started doing it virtual. But before I got into that, I was doing it in New York, which was not easy for newbies for sure.
So is that why, so you started in New York, and then I want to get back to New York for a second, but then you then tried to do it in Dallas, and then was it because New York was tough for you and you decided that let me try to do another market?
Yeah, I'll tell you why I stopped New York. Because what happens in New York is that it's not that it's super competitive over there in terms of other investors. Like, yeah, there's other investors, but every time that you do a deal in New York, especially where I'm from, like the New York City area, you have to get an attorney involved, and the seller gets an attorney. You have to get an attorney. So then you have two other people involved besides you and the seller. And a lot of the times the attorneys, they're not familiar with how investors work. So,
Yeah.
you can't just really sign a contract. You have to have the attorneys prepare it and then they exchange it, which takes time.
Right.
So that slows down the sales cycle, number one. So to do a deal in 2 weeks in New York is next to impossible. I mean, the quickest we've done a property was like 30 days. That was like record breaking, like 30 days for contract close. And then also they want big deposits. So usually we get away with $1,000 to $2,000 because we just kind of have our little system down. We're like, listen, we buy 3 to 5 houses a month. We can't put 10% down. But I have friends in Long Island where they're putting 10, 20, $30,000 deposits down because the attorneys won't let their client sign unless the other buyer has some skin in the game. So it was challenging for me, and it was really affecting cash flow because our deals were taking forever to close. And I said, well, if I can, at first it was kind of like, oh, well, I'm making excuses up. I said, let me just test this in another market and see if it's easier. And it's a lot easier without attorneys.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting thing is that I found that out. I didn't tell you this. I found that out about New York accidentally. I had a student back. I was doing this is a couple years ago. I had a mentoring student, and he was in New York, and we were doing in some marketing in Queens County.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we were doing marketing there, and there were 2 deals we found. We found a deal, and perfect avatar, and the next thing you know, lady's like attorney, like gets an attorney involved, and I'm like. I'm like, why are you getting an attorney? And then and then the attorney wanted like a $20,000 deposit, and we're like, oh, this ain't gonna work. So then I thought it was an isolated incident. Never occurred to me until we got another lead, and then eventually then the seller said, okay, yeah, no problem, we'll do the deal. And next thing you know, there's an attorney involved, and I'm like, this is odd. And then I talked to an investor in that area, and he's like, yeah, everybody has an attorney here. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. And it's interesting because the student, the same issue, he ended up moving to Orlando in terms of his market at the time. And then he ended up getting, whereas he was struggling in New York for a couple months, just trying to find a deal. When we finally found one, that happened. And then he got his first deal within 30 days in Orlando.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's an interesting thing. So just the quick comment I would make about that is that then you're still doing deals in New York, right?
So again, like now I'm back in there doing deals because at the time it was because I was new. I had no experience, no track record, no capital really, no network. So to do these types of deals for me, and I wasn't flipping, I do rehabs now too. So like at the time it was like to wholesale, it just wasn't a friendly market. Once I went into Texas and did pretty well, then I started, having resources, and I was like, all right, well now I had the right expectations. My cash flow, like my company cash flow wasn't being affected as much because we had so many deals going on in Texas.
Yeah.
for us to do a deal in New York, it didn't matter because we had all these deals in Texas. So now I do still do business in New York because, number one, I know the area very well. Not very competitive in terms of other investors. You know, there's certainly people there, but it's not hyper competitive like a San Diego or San Francisco. And I kind of like the barrier to entry now because we're wholesaling, but we're also taking deals down and doing rehabs. And for us to put a deposit down, it's not that bad because we've gotten it down, like not 20 grand, obviously, but we've gotten them down to a reasonable price. And, you know, we're closing a lot of the time. So it's not that critical anymore.
Right. So then you're able to do deals there because now you have the financial ability to work around the nuances. So I would say that then, is there less competition in New York because of that?
Oh yeah, there's way less competition. You're not going to like, there's definitely other investors there, but it's not like, I mean, I've been in situations even in Dallas where like, you know, we're like, there's 14 investors trying to buy. Like you're never seeing that in New York. You're going to maybe compete with one or two guys. But the marketing dollars go far up there,
right.
Especially where I'm from in upstate, like an hour from Manhattan. You're not competing with the Queens counties. So you're in a good situation if you are willing to, you know, deal with some of the BS with the attorneys.
So is that the only pretty much state that you know of in the Northeast that operates in that way, where pretty much, you know?
New York, Northern New Jersey, and Connecticut does it too. So like Connecticut,
as well.
That tri-state area, it's that
Yeah.
You got like New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York.
Yeah.
They have, because Southern New Jersey, you just do a title.
And so then now, are you still in Dallas or no? As a market, you still operate in Dallas?
Dallas, you know, over the last like couple months, I started to slowly pull out of the advertising down there because in New York, we were just doing our deals in New York and they've been very profitable because we already have. But I mean, up until like the last couple months, I mean, we were cranking, you know, high, you know, not high volume, like 10 plus deals a month, but we were doing, you know, 2 to 4, sometimes we've done 5 in a month one time in Texas because of that marketing strategy. Right. But then once that started to dry up, I started to realize like, hey, this might not, you know, last forever, at least for now. I was going after that niche. I had so much momentum and so many leads in that database already. Like I didn't really do any more like new prospecting. My assistant didn't have to call anymore because we already had so many numbers and leads in our database.
Right.
So
you were just cultivating the stuff you had already worked to.
Generating it. Yeah, they're already in our lead system. So we're just, you know, getting people to pick the phone up and they're already in our system. So recently, no, I haven't been doing much stuff in Dallas over the last really like, you know, 3 to 4 months.
But now you live in San Diego.
I live in California though. Yeah.
All right. So then now are you actively doing stuff in San Diego or no?
I got a property under contract. I still have it. I haven't been able to sell it. It's land out in Julian, which is like kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
So I have my assistant right now sending some text messaging out. So it hasn't been our like critical business, but you know, I had a conversation with someone. They were like, listen, man, why don't you just do some marketing out here? If you get a deal, you get a deal, but you got your business working in other areas. So, you know, whether it works or not, I mean, you can make some big spreads, but this market too out here, listen, it's, there's guys doing deals I know out here, but it's definitely a little different than for New York, for example, in terms of, you know, sellers' expectations. Right. Houses are expensive, you know.
So now I had a couple of questions. So I'm going to ask you in terms of marketing. You and I had just a brief conversation about how things that, you know, were working before are different, right? So for example, back when you started, direct mail was something that not that many people were doing. And back then, you know, 3 years ago, cold calling and the whole thing wasn't really that, you know, non-existent. Yeah, non-existent, right? Exactly. Whereas now it's like, you know, cold calling, you and I talked about this, is if I go to an investor meeting and I ask, you know, the investors what they're doing for marketing, the majority of them right now will say cold calling. Yes. And I'll write down with an asterisk on that just to go back to that. And then cold calling, but also a lot of text messaging, right? Yeah. So that seems to be like so my question to you is, because I want to cover two things. So we have the virtual aspect of it, but we also have the marketing. In terms of marketing, where is it that you see, like, say, if you're looking at what you did 2 years ago versus, say, what you're looking at doing this year, or where you're looking at transitioning, where is the transition from what you were doing before that now what you think is more viable now?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. There's we can get into a little deal that I got actually off Facebook, what I can share with everyone and the numbers and everything. It's still in contract, so it hasn't closed, whatever. But I think the texting and the calling, especially a few years ago, I mean, my goodness, no one was doing that. Even direct mail a couple of years ago, no one was doing that. We
Right.
already covered that. Now it's getting much more saturated. And the reason I'm saying that is because it still works if you're willing to put the work in on that stuff. But when you're doing those media channels now, you're fighting an uphill battle with sellers. They know they got a hot commodity on their hands. They're getting 3-4 a day. And in San Diego, we're doing this. And like the people are literally saying, you've sent me, I've gotten 4 of these today. I don't want to sell my house, by the way, so VA's getting rid of them ASAP. So right now I'm doing, some real niche stuff with, it's sort of like calling and texting, but I'm basically like, trying to get people who wouldn't kind of show up on the general list. We're basically skip tracing lists, finding deceased owners. And then from there, we're skip tracing those people to get their relatives. So we're trying to go like 2 or 3 to 4 layers deep from the lists that are already available to find, the deceased owners, and then skip tracing them. We're going in, we're finding the relatives. And then usually the harder they are to find, the better we're going to be able to the better chance we're going to have of getting the deal. First thing. The second thing, I've actually been doing some Facebook marketing. I teamed up with a buddy, and he's like kind of a digital ad guy. And I said, listen, if you figure out this Facebook thing, and obviously he got your training and he's been using your training, and we're getting leads in New York extremely easily. They're very cheap. They're cost effective. And I've noticed that the type, like the way, like I love lead generation, like the quality of lead on Facebook is actually a really good quality lead, because it's almost similar to an SEO lead, to where they happen to see, the Facebook ad. It's like a bandit sign online, right? And they're reaching out, and now you're getting people with much more intention, a higher like intention of selling via Facebook. So we're getting quality leads on Facebook. I haven't gone too deep with that. And then the third way that I'm doing it is in New York, not in other markets. I'm doing direct mail. Like we're doing direct mail to niche lists that are hard to get in my market, like tax delinquent. It's like impossible to get that list. And once you get it, it's like format it. It takes a long time. And then we're doing, some vacant house marketing. We're like on direct mail. And then we're doing like, this other list I found on PropStream is like, it's like, absentee owners with like a lien on their house. Somehow you can find properties with liens on them on PropStream. So that list has been converting pretty well. And then some unknown sale date stuff for direct mail. So then the reason I'm doing direct mail in New York is because it's not as competitive as some of these other markets. Those are the marketing channels we're hitting right now that are getting us leads.
So a couple of things. So, but like with the, you're talking about the niche list that you're doing, just to recap, what you're doing is, I assume you're going in and getting these different lists, you're stacking them, but also you're skip tracing them, and getting to, and figuring out in that list, who shows up as either deceased, or they might show up as 80 or 90 or 100 years old, and with liens. And then now you really are just trying to get a hold of them somehow, some way. So you're dealing with less leads, but with more things that require problem solving, looking for them, and then potentially bigger deals, right? Where now nobody else is really has gone after them.
Exactly. We're taking the list that everyone is calling and texting,
right?
And find people like who have a property, for example, maybe it's in foreclosure, or it's got a huge tax lien on it. So now we're like, well, why is there a $30,000 tax lien on a vacant property? Oh, the owner's not alive. Okay, well now let's go and skip trace them. We just, and we find the relatives, and then we call them. And then usually the situation is they either don't want to sell it because they hate the property, or they're like, hey, I didn't even think I could sell it. I have so many deals I could share. I could share case studies, about this, where like they didn't even know they owned the property. They thought the bank took it. The bank never even owned it because there was no lien on it.
They forgot about it, right?
Yeah, and they're like, hey, if you give me 10 grand, I would be happy as a clam. And I'm like,
well, I was gonna say there's one sentence that every investor wants to hear when you ask a seller about a property, and that is, oh, I didn't know I still own that.
We hear that, and I just think in my head, I could walk through a deal where that happened, and I was just like, really, you didn't know you own that? Well, would you ever be open to maybe selling it?
Right.
Like, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's like, just for everybody's sake, I have an interview with Larry Higgins here on the channel that we discuss this topic.
Yeah.
So if you look up on the channel, Larry Higgins from Skip Genie, we covered this particular topic in depth. The one thing I was going to mention, so you're doing that with those specialty lists. The other, you mentioned about the tax delinquent list. I have a client who's actually doing really well with the tax delinquent list, and I asked him why it was, because there's a mixed some people say it's great, some people say it's not that great. And the main reason he's doing well with that is because you can't buy the list.
That's the key.
You have to go and source it.
That's
Yeah.
put it on him. That's it.
Yeah. So I think that the other part of it is any list that you can't go online and buy it, then that's always that some people get frustrated with that, but that's a opportunity list, because then that means that there's only going to be a handful of people that might have it. So that means that your competition is a lot less.
Yeah, 100% agree. I'll give you an example. The tax link in New York, you're not going to get on PropStream or whatever. You have to get it, and then
Which one?
New York, the tax
Okay.
link.
Yeah.
But the file that they sent it to you, and it's such a confusing file. It literally took my VA about 4 weeks to process this whole thing, because like it's just such a pain in the neck. It's so tedious. So by the time we were done with that project, like that's our highest converting list, because like they're getting a letter from me and that's it for the most part. And yeah, we're not up against 9 other investors. It's not like we're at the courthouse steps, you know?
So with direct mail, so I would say if you're doing direct mail, you're not doing a blanketed direct mail campaign. You're still doing with the best you can to figure out either motivation or any sort of liens or anything like that to minimize the list and try to just increase the. So in other words, if let's say the tax delinquent list or some of these other lists, if you're doing that, if you're getting a list, let's say you have a core list of, what would you say? Do you have a core list of? I guess maybe what I'm trying to ask is that if you have a core list of people that now you have in New York that you've identified that, hey, these people are our best prospects, are you targeting them by, direct mail, cold calling, text messaging? Are you trying to do all those avenues against that list, or just focusing on one or two?
In New York, I'm just mailing them for the most part. We'll do some like texting to test it, but we've seen, at least in my market, in my primary market, direct mail is getting us the best results in terms of conversion and profitability. We're getting some leads off texting, but they're not too great. I mean, we're not getting great, like we're getting leads, but they're not good quality leads. So
Right.
you have to go through way more of them. I mean, in direct mail, my numbers are straight up like 1 in 35 is a deal in direct mail. Tried and track that data track back about a year and a half back. 1 out of 35 leads on average is a deal off of direct mail in New York. So we know that number. And now I'm like, all right, well, we can just keep sending the mail out, and 1 out of 35 on average is going to be a deal. Texting, you're going to have to probably double that. In California, you're going to have to triple that, because it's just that much more difficult. But hey, it still works.
The other thing is also the risk involved with text messaging, right? Because if with direct mail, at least you're covered with text messages. Being in New York, they're kind of aggressive there. There's a lot of attorneys, so I would think that is also something that you have to think about, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So I was eating lunch with my buddy Casey yesterday. We're having a nice discussion over marketing, and he actually, believe it or not, he sent a text out. This is in LA area. He had the seller trick him into wanting to sell his property to him. And after they probably spoke for about 20, 30 minutes, he's like, okay, before I exchange, some information, I'd like to just get some company information about you, and Casey gave him the information, and the guy sent him a letter, and he was like, hey, we're going to sue you, blah, 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 and like ended up going away. But he kind of baited him in to show him. Yeah. So that happens. I actually got stood up one time. The seller told me he wanted to meet me at Starbucks to talk about his property. I went to Starbucks and he never showed up, and he texted me. He's like, you're an idiot. You think I'd ever sell my house to you?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting, because I always think about is that the other part of it is with direct mail is that it's a different conversation. When you're cold calling somebody or text messaging them, you have to overcome the this is not a scam. This is not Greg from India or Pakistan. Try to get your social, try to reach out to you because you have that Social Security warrant arrest against you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with direct mail, they're calling you, so now you have you're already a step or two past that credibility part, right?
Exactly. They're purposely taking the time to call you. I was just talking with a client today on a sales call, and I was like, yeah, like, they're seeing your postcard, they're acknowledging you, and then they're calling you. So you're already in a better situation opposed to like, is this? It's a text them an RVM or whatever. Don't even get started with RVMs, but anyway.
Well,
Yes.
They're illegal in Florida. Or
Yeah,
at
I
least
don't never. Yeah, I don't like that.
yeah.
Very good.
So then now, if you are in, uh, if you're, I had a question to you. I want to ask you this question around the virtual aspect of it. But you are in New York, so so I'm going to ask you a kind of a fictitious question, and I didn't prep Greg for this, so he may either swim or sink, but I doubt that he will sink.
Okay.
Um, well, one comment I want to go back before we cover that is on Facebook. Just curious, you're running Facebook in New York?
The leads are in New York only. Yeah.
Okay. Are you targeting the county, or are you targeting what is your targeting like?
It's Orange, Rockland, Westchester, and Dutch, or 4 counties. Orange, Rockland, Westchester, Dutch. It's 4 counties. And
And you
I'm running them. I have a buddy who is like, we have like an agreement figured out where like he
Yeah.
does all the Facebook leads. He's got your training. I said, get you.
Right.
And then, he's generating the leads. And then if I'm flipping the house, I give him a percentage. If it's a wholesale deal, we do like a split or whatever.
Oh, so you and are you running the campaigns? Each campaign is in it for each county individually?
No, it's because all those counties are the Hudson Valley. So it's like Hudson Valley houses or something like that. So
Got it. Okay. So you're running one big, humongous campaign.
yes, Hudson
Okay.
Valley. Hudson Valley
Do you know
houses.
what your cost per lead is on average?
Yeah, he stopped the marketing like a month ago. So we're still getting we still have leads from the database, but when he was doing it hard at the time, we were getting like 2 to 3 leads a day. And from what he shared with me, the cost per lead was like in between like 10 and like $25. Because our market isn't saturated. And I was like, holy,
right.
That's crazy.
Why did you stop the leads? Out of curiosity.
He was paying for part of the deal was he was paying for the marketing.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have that lag time between the time that the leads come in and the time the deals get procured. So that has an impact on cash flow. Because what I was going to recommend you, and this is what we've had the best success with the students, is going wider, in the campaigns. Yeah. So I don't know how he was targeting, but if you're targeting, I would recommend grouping all those counties together, okay, and putting them all together into one campaign. And then also in terms of a budget, typically what I have found is that the higher budgets don't do as well as the lower budgets. So when in doubt, you're better off having 2 campaigns with the same low budget versus 1 campaign with that same budget in 1 campaign. But the things that I would consider would be grouping all those campaigns together into one. So you're going to get, grouping all those counties and that whole area together. But the other thing I would consider is also, potentially, and I don't know the geography of your state, but something to consider would be is doing a test campaign targeting the whole state. Because what you'll find is that, and this happens to us all the time, is that the same student that I told you, I had a conversation with Greg about a student who was running campaigns here in Florida, and now he's running the whole state, and he's having better success with that. But he was getting leads in my county. So even though you're running the whole state, you're still very likely to get leads in the counties that you're targeting. But you also may get leads in areas that you may not have considered, but you're still able to make money. I had another student, I forgot to tell you about this. I had another student I spoke with on Monday. So he's in Texas and he's in Houston. So he was trying to get deals in Houston. And he was just having a struggle with his cost per lead. Was getting up there 35 or 40. There were good leads, but I told him, run the whole state. So he ran the whole state. And he got this deal. I don't want to say the city where it was at, but it was a population size of less than 100,000. It wouldn't be an area that you would normally, like if you're doing virtual wholesaling, that you would say, oh, I'm going to go into that area. But he got a deal, and he says, he got a deal there. And then the cost per lead that he was getting was really cheap. It was like $6-7 a lead. It was really, really low. But on that deal, he's going to make like 10K. And so then now he's having to kind of rethink things, because in his mind, he's like, well, I can continue to fight to try to get deals in this county that I'm looking for. But if I can get, $6, $7, $8 leads, and but if I can just work in virtually, by talking about some of doing some of the things we're going to be discussing now, at the end of the day, money's money, right? It doesn't matter. The Bank of America never ask you what county your deal was at. They just hand you a check, right? So that's the other thing I would test with yours is running the whole entire state.
I wrote that down here.
Yeah, because to me, that's the thing that is the most interesting is because I find that students, once you get over the hump and you're past that hump of doing deals virtually and understanding that it's really not that big of a deal, I think that would give you more opportunities and might open up to other areas and markets that you may not have even thought about, but perhaps, might be very viable.
And we rehab too. So we can, this is interesting. I like that idea because, we, on top of the fact that New York has attorneys, we know how to deal with them. This is interesting because I definitely think, like you said, with your student, he might not have wanted to go into that market if he didn't get a lead there. But I'm sure it was a little bit easier to get the seller to sell in the house since they happen to reach out on Facebook.
100%. Yeah. There's not that much. It's a much easier conversation. The other thing is with the Facebook leads is that the other thing that helps with the Facebook leads is that most of those owners, I don't know, you tell me if you encounter the same thing. Most of the leads are owner occupied properties. Did you?
Most of them are, but the one that I am doing is inherited property.
It's an inherited property. Yeah, was it listed in the tax records as being an owner occupied or an absentee? Owner occupied. See, so with the leads, what ends up happening is, if you're going to mail absentee, and if you want to go crazy on absentee owners, you could mail a big portion of the absentee owner list because it's finite. But if I said, hey, I want you to mail the owner occupied, you really have to squeeze the filters on that list because the list is so big. Huge. So I think what happens is you get a lot of leads with the Facebook ads that are not, you're not in competition with other real estate investors just because they're not getting a lot of mail, if any mail at all, because they're owner occupied. They're not typically the type of leads that people would go after and mail or try to skip trace, right?
100%. I agree with you. And it's a better intention. The type of lead on Facebook is like they're seeing the ad and they're opting in. So they're already ready to talk to you. Like
right.
It's a little easier.
So what happened with this deal? You do have a deal from the Facebook, but now you have some issues with the I think you mentioned the septic tank or something.
Yeah, there's like logistical. But basically, the long and short, there's a property. We got it. Relatively motivated. So, as you would say, Chris, a reasonable seller. That one video you made, very reasonable seller. Not going to jump off a cliff if she doesn't sell, though. Anyway, so we got it under contract. Negotiation wasn't too hard, and was going to wholesale it. Didn't work out with one of the buyers for some reason, so I'm like, I'll just take it down myself. Got a home inspection before I did that, very common. And the home inspection was a disaster. I knew the house like from a structural standpoint, but I went, I was in New York when I got under contract, so I've seen the house. And the septic tank was shot, and it's right above a lake actually. So like, if the septic has to get replaced and it's near a lake, that could be a disaster for environmental issues.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had to get a price reduction, and we're in the middle of renegotiating that right now. So if there wasn't a septic tank, I would be the owner of this property right now, but we're still kind of fighting some septic issues. But in terms of like, besides that, the actual lead itself was a phenomenal lead. I mean, the lady reached out, had a property, knew what she was getting into. We took her through a simple sales process, and she was like, I want to sell to an investor. And like I said, like the type of lead that came from Facebook, we've had other leads on Facebook where like they wanted to sell, they just didn't have equity.
Right.
So like, those leads are good leads because they're kind of looking for you, like almost like a Google AdWords lead.
Are you when the leads come in? Are you calling them? Are you text messaging them? Are you emailing them? Are you doing all of that?
Usually a phone call. If they don't answer, a text message right away. Texting is probably better actually. Like when the lead comes in, if it's a cell phone, which it usually is, you're going to get a better response from a text. But I'll just call them, or I'll have one of my assistants call them. Facebook leads I like to talk to myself. My assistant, like a lot of the.
What we've been finding. And this is actually with just recently with a few of my students, and also a deal that we have a deal in Melbourne, Florida.
Oh, Melbourne Beach. Yeah, my great aunt has a house over there. It's funny.
Oh, really? I've never been to Melbourne.
It's like an hour, probably from hour and a half from where you are right now, maybe 2 hours.
Okay. So we had a lead that we ran a statewide campaign. We had a lead that came in, and so when and this is what we've been finding, we text message and we email. This particular seller, however, was did not respond to text, only responded to emails. So because of the fact that he travels and some other stuff, but everything has been through email. Eventually, then we got to the point where we went back and forth. We asked them questions about the condition of the property, the situation, etc. And then the point in time that we got on the phone with him was when we actually then needed to discuss price. And so then at that point, then that's when we got on the phone. And then now everything reverted back again to email. I had a student recently that he has a deal that the whole entire conversation, the beginning part of it and the tail end of it, has all been through text, but only that portion of the conversation when it comes to the discussion of the price and the final negotiation. And I think that that's because if you think about it, most people are used to text messaging. You know, if you think about like me and my wife, we're mostly messaging. If I call my wife, she says, "Hey, what's wrong? Why didn't you?"
Yeah. Exactly the same.
And even if you and I are hanging out, like you and I would text each other up until the point where like we're trying to figure out logistics. You're like, "Hey, I'm going to call you because I need to figure out."
Hey, I'm in the back of the restaurant. Come meet me in the back.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So the thing I find, and this I've been finding with a lot of the students, is that is be okay with perhaps seeing what is that mode of communication that you can get the ball rolling with the seller. So because if you call the seller and they don't pick up, if you think about it, how many times a day do you get a call from your phone that you don't recognize, and then AT&T marks it as a spam, right? Now, they may not mark your phone as a spam. However, though, think about, for me, I've gotten so used to now the spam calls. Even if the phone doesn't say spam, I assume now it's a spam because the majority of the calls I get on my phone are spam risk and all this other stuff. Every so often, just for shits and giggles, maybe I don't have anything to do, I pick it up, and it's always a friendly Pakistani, Indian, some guy from Nigeria. They seem very nice people, but they got interesting. So what we've been finding is that is that if you call them, right, sometimes text messaging them and trying to at least get that initial back and get them, get that initial conversation, right? Sometimes we might if we text message a lead and we say, "Hey, we're looking to connect with you about your property, blah, blah, blah," and we send them a couple text messages. Sometimes we might text message them with a question mark, and that's all. And then they might reply back. And I always think of it as like, at the end of the day, you want them just to start, you want to grease the wheel. You want to just get them start having a conversation with you. And so the other thing that we've been finding is just a lot of the sellers, we've been able to at least get that dialogue started. And then we then pitch or ask for, "Hey, if you have a minute, let's get on the phone for a few minutes. I'm going to call you because it'd be better for us to flesh this out over the phone."
That's smart. No, I'm going to start. I'm actually going to implement that today.
Yeah.
Starting today, I'm going to test it. I'm going to tell Marie to start doing that, because how many times do you get a phone call and you're like, "I just can't talk right now. Like I'm doing a podcast or whatever," but you can respond to a text real quick. So
you can respond to a text. And then the other thing I was going to mention to you is I had a guy that I had a video about this on my channel, and he made a comment because it's very much, I want to just repeat what he said because it was very much exactly what we're talking about here. And here goes. This is what he said. He said that he's in the probate niche, and he said that they would call for they do cold calls for probate, and they would text, but only sometimes. So then he heard one of my videos talk about how you should be texting and trying to really push on trying to get the seller to come back to you via text. He says that they started texting. So he says that now they're getting close to a 50% response ratio. He's in negotiations with 6 to 7 administrators in probate. He submitted 8 offers and close to inking 5 or 6 of them. And and it's just only because now they're really trying to, they're still going to call, but they're just pushing the envelope on how much of a dialogue they can get with a seller on the text message, or at least to get things rolling.
Yeah, you can build rapport through text too.
So that's the other thing we've been finding. So that's the other thing I was going to recommend to you, is that if you're doing the statewide, don't be afraid of, because what happens is a lot of times with the text messaging, people just use that as a form of just, hey, I didn't reach him, so might as well just text him as like a, I got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But maybe looking at it like almost the same way as you're calling them, that you're trying to have a back and forth with them, and to talk like a normal human person, like just to like not be like, hey, my name is, not that you would do this, but like, hey, my name is Greg and we buy houses cash. Love to talk to you about your house. Like that sounds like an advertisement, right?
Spell a couple, but yeah, misspell some stuff or don't capitalize
right.
it. You're talking to a human. No, that's awesome. I'm gonna implement that starting today.
So I want to talk to you about virtual wholesaling. So you're in New York, so you already know New York and everything else. So I want to propose to a scenario for you to get your take on a couple of things with virtual wholesaling. So let's say, have you been to Florida, right? Have you ever done deals in Florida?
I've never wholesaled a house, and I've locked a deal up in Tampa, but it had title issues.
Okay.
I just went in and went to Tampa.
All right.
Anyway.
So let's say that that you started to run ads in Florida. You started to run Facebook ads in Florida, and now you're getting leads from all over the state, and you happen to get a lead in Melbourne, right?
Okay.
So taking the lead generation aspect of it, right? When it comes to virtual wholesaling, a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck on the following things, I think. They get stuck on, how do I figure out what the property is worth? How do I get photos? Because I'm not there, right? How do I, let's say that I need to get a contract signed. So they're like, well, how can I get a contract signed if I'm not there physically with the property owner, right? And then I think the other obstacle, I think out of those are easy, but I think that the biggest obstacle I think that people have is, now that I have a contract, I got to show this deal. How do I do that? How do I send people to the house? They're going to be meeting with the owner. The whole deal is going to fall apart. The owner and everything is just going to go down to the showings. So I think, you tell me, but when I think about virtual wholesaling and I think about the questions I get, the majority of the questions come down to those. How do I figure out its worth? How do I get photos of the property? Now that the presupposition there is that photos are needed, but we'll cover that. How do I get the contract signed? But most importantly, how do I coordinate with the buyers and to show the deal without the whole thing just falling apart and me having egg on my face?
Okay.
You think that those are the four big rocks?
Yeah, I'll whack them out for you. I'll whack them out because this has happened to me. I mean, in Texas, it's the same thing. So first things first, photos. Let's say you get the deal over photos. Okay, you can do like two things. You can have the seller send you photos, which I've done many times. You can have like a We Go Look company. I think they're called We Go Look. They can go out there. They can take. Well, it also depends on if the property's vacant or not. So if the property's vacant, 9 out of 10 times we get a lockbox on there. That's never an issue, and they go in there. They take their photos. If the property is occupied, let's just say if the property is occupied, if you need to get photos, step number one, what I would do is I would see if the homeowner could share photos with you. Most of them will, assuming you have rapport built with them. If they won't give photos to you or whatever, what I would do is I would probably, assuming I have it under contract. So let me address the contract thing too now. So how do I get a contract signed? The first thing I would do is I would try to see if they would sign on DocuSign, which I've done so many times. That usually works unless the seller is super old. Mm-hmm. If they're really old or they won't sign on DocuSign, you actually send a mobile notary to their house to sign the documents. And that's a hard copy. It's like going to be like $100 to $200. And therefore the mobile notary signs the contract, and then you could do the same thing on your end, depending on where you are. Assuming the contract signed to get photos, I would honestly call up, in that situation, I'd see if the seller can do it. If the seller can't give you photos, then I would probably, assuming it was under contract, it depends on what I would do. I would probably find either another wholesaler or a realtor, depending on what you want to do. If let's say this is your first deal you've ever done in that market and you have no track record, I would probably reach out to your network, get another wholesaler who would want to maybe do some sort of a split with you, and then agree to have them go into the property and take pictures or whatever the case is. And then so this is if they're giving you a lot of resistance. And then usually that will work, because obviously the seller should expect someone probably will go in their house at least once before they close on it. So I'd probably get another wholesaler involved if it was my first deal in that market, just to see what was going on. If I knew the area very well and I knew there was a lot of buyer activity and I had it under contract, I would then probably go on a prop stream and I would get probably the top 20 buyers, or I'd go on a Facebook group, depending on how you want to handle it.
Right.
Post the deal in a Facebook group. I wouldn't give details out. I'd kind of rack the shotgun, as Perry Marshall would say, get the interested people to kind of reach out to me, and then I would share the information with them, assuming I have some serious prospects there. Then I would set up a time to where I'd probably get, I've done this before and it's worked well, get like 2 or 3 buyers in there. And you basically just tell them, listen, I'm wholesaling this house. I have it under contract. And then they would go in there. They'd either take pictures for you or they'd just see the property themselves. And then if they're serious buyers, honestly, it doesn't matter where you are. They're going to want the damn house. Like, they're not going to want to, kick you around. I mean, if they're serious and you have it under contract, you get some legitimate buyers in there, they're going to want to make an offer on the property. If they're not wanting to make an offer on the property, you're probably not vetting them correctly and you probably didn't find the right buyers. So assuming they're serious, yeah, that shouldn't be an issue. I did this on that house in Greenwood Lake that's got the septic issues. I had a home. So here's this. I had a home inspector at the house with 2 buyers, and I was in Europe when this was happening. I was over in Seas, and there was no issues at all. Everyone was fine, and the seller was there too. So, like, as long as you're cool with telling everyone what's going on, that's really never an issue. So if you can't get pictures, I would get a buyer in there. If you don't want to get the buyer in there and you're new to the market, then I would probably call up another wholesaler and work with them on that deal, because they are going to have a buyer's list already. They're going to have, obviously the ability to go to that property, assuming they live in that market.
But now I have a few things to add to what you said here, because I took a couple notes. The one thing I would say on the would you show the property? Let's say you had a buyer. Let's say you got the owner to send you photos of the property.
Okay.
Now you have enough to be able to understand what the value is. You get a buyer that you find through PropStream, and it looks like it's somebody that knows our business, right? Not a new person that has.
A reasonable person. Yeah.
Would you send them to the property on their own, or would you feel like you need some sort of referee there, like an agent or wholesaler?
That's a good question. It all depends. Like, you want my opinion on what I would do, or like what should a newbie do? Because it depends on what.
Both. Like, why only restrict? It's like, Chico, do you want the steak and the lobster? I want both. Why did you give me both?
Yeah. So I would make sure that it's a deal I can close on no matter what. So if it's a deal that, like, sometimes we'll get a deal and like I just want to try to wholesale it because I think it's a disaster to close on. Some buyers don't want. So if I'm going to close on it myself, I'll send a buyer in there and I'll say, if you try to screw me, I'm buying the house and we can file the contract. I've done that a few times. Not fun. If it's a house that's a little sketchy and I might not want to buy it myself, maybe because it's a disaster inside, or maybe it's in an area that doesn't move that well, I probably would just take the risk of sending the buyer in there no matter what. I don't know, like, depending if I don't know the market, if I knew 0 people in that market, I'd probably send the buyer there. If I knew someone in that market, I'd say, hey, listen, you want to make $100 for an hour? And I would maybe get my uncle in there or something, assuming he was in that market. But I wouldn't go out of my way to try to find a referee to give you the shoot. I wouldn't go out of my way. I would, if I could do it, great. But if I can't, I'm going to just take my risk. What do you have to lose, right?
Yeah. So a couple of things to add. On photos, just something to add. 2 things. When we ask the seller to send photos, we prefer for them to email us the photos versus sending them by text. Because if they email us the photos, they'll be higher quality than if they text message them, then they typically will be the graded quality.
Okay. I usually get them over text. That's a good little nugget. I've never, usually they just text.
Yeah. Another source, instead of wegolook.com, I use a site called bpophotoflow.com.
BPO.
Photoflow.com.
They're nationwide, obviously.
They're nationwide. They do. It's a network of real estate brokers that they get for all REO properties. So you're going to get good pictures. I found them to me better than WeGoLook. WeGoLook, I've had issues with their website recently, and they've been spotty. But with BPO Photo Flow, so far the work that they've done has been quite good.
Huh. This is awesome.
So those are the 2 comments I would make on that. in terms of photos, I find that most people nowadays, they have a cell phone. The other thing would be is giving the instructions to the seller. I'm not going to cover. One of the things that we're going to be doing is, and obviously this is for my YouTube channel for the info business, but we're going to be creating a YouTube channel just for the house buying business, and then one of those videos can be an unlisted video that then has you explain to the seller how to best take photos of the property.
That's interesting. As the investor.
Yeah. You mean the YouTube? You say interesting about the photo?
Like another YouTube channel with, explaining to the seller how to kind of direct them or how to take those pictures.
Well, you have a YouTube channel. So let's say I think everybody, I think you as an investor should have a YouTube channel so that when you're speaking with a seller, and let's say you're just in that process of building a rapport with them, you might come up with a thing about, hey, I'm thinking about listing it with an agent versus selling it to an investor. I'm not sure. And let's say I finish that conversation with the property owner. But what if you have a YouTube channel? And the whole purpose of that is to show credibility. So you have let's say your on Carrot site, you have your YouTube channel now, right? Yeah. Greg Buys Houses. And one of those videos is about the benefits of somebody selling to you versus a real estate agent. So when you get off the phone with a seller, you say, hey, Mr. Seller, great talking today. I know you're trying to decide between an agent and an investor. I wanted to share with you a video that I did on my channel that might give you some additional things to think about when you're trying to make that decision. Now, all of a sudden, now, who else is going to do that? Now, in your channel, however, you can have unlisted videos. And one of those unlisted videos is you explain to the seller how to take photos of the property. Hey, if you're watching this video, I asked you to take some photos of the property. And we do this because it helps us in making sure that, hey, we give you the best, we can expedite the process as quickly as possible. We may still need to get in there, obviously before, so we can finalize everything, but so that way we can minimize the number of people coming through the house. That's why we ask you to take photos. And when taking the photos, here's a couple of things. Number one is make sure you hold your phone this way, not this way, because it's, make sure you take a picture of the room and here. And so you could have a quick 2-minute video, you send it to the seller, and then now it gets you a better picture than you would, than the normal. So that's the other thing I would consider doing.
That's interesting. I have a whole page of notes from this call. Look at that. Content marketing. Yeah.
The other thing is, the one thing I was going to write down is credibility. So, when we're running ads on Facebook, we're running them as Cris Buys Houses, but our website is a URL. It's a non-Carrot site. But it's a URL that also is a form of credibility. I think that helps. So if I call you and I say, hey, Greg, this is Cris from Cris Buys Houses, and also from my website is sellyourusaHomeToday.com. And so then all of a sudden now I'm also giving you, there's a layer of credibility right there. You saw me on Facebook. You saw my post on Facebook about buying properties for sale. Our company name is this. And then you have the website. And also the website, I don't like it when investors have a website that is like, Quantum LLC properties.edu or some, and then the seller has no idea. So I like for example, sell your New York house today, sell your New York property today.com. Like that's a website you can redirect to wherever you want. But I like the idea that when you tell the seller the website, it quickly then tells them exactly what you do. They don't have to process that. They're like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, I understand what you do. And it sounds credible, right? Because it's, awesome. Hey, this is Greg from sellyournewyorkpropertytoday.com or whatever you can find, right?
On your site right now. Yeah, no, this is legit. Yeah, no,
sellyourUSAHomeToday.com.
Yeah. This is a slick one. Nice.
That's just the on Carrot site with just a little the icon up at the top, right? Yeah, but if I said that to you, then it sounds more legitimate, right? You're like, okay, I get what you're doing, right? The other thing I was going to mention about the mobile notaries, if you start using a mobile notary and you start using them on a regular basis, they can usually do more stuff for you than you think. They can play referee for you because all they're doing is they're going around, running around all day, and they're getting paid for getting signatures signed. So they're used to getting signature signed. So they're used to having a particular protocol that they follow, right? They're used to being professional in a certain way. So what I find is that many times with a mobile notary, we can get them to go get contracts signed. we can go get them and say, hey, look, this property that you visited the other day with the property owner, I need you to go and you, again, you, once they know what you're doing, they're okay with going for $100 and like, okay, I'll show up for $100 wait 30 minutes. And that's another, it's the same thing as if they were getting a notary. The other thing is, if you work with somebody, we've done this in the past on a regular basis, you can have a shirt that you send them that says the name of your company. So whenever they go visit a seller for a notary or for anything else, they could just put the shirt on.
Yeah.
Right? And then they become part of your team. So those are a couple of things I was going to mention. The other thing I was going to mention, so those are, I guess, additions to some of the things you mentioned about how to get the photos, credibility, I wrote down, how to get the contract signed. I use HelloSign.
That's the DocuSign app. Is that the
DocuSign? There's DocuSign, and then there's
that's the Dropbox company.
Yeah, that's the Dropbox. They were bought by Dropbox.
Okay.
So I used them. I think they were cheaper. Maybe I was a cheap ass, and so I went with them versus DocuSign. But that also helps. The other thing that we do is that we send a contract to the seller. Okay, you can have one of two options. You can send a contract to the seller. You can send them a one-page contract. But what if you send them a contract package that has a cover letter and it says, hey, it has the little, your logo up at the top, and then it has a thing that says, hey, here are all the benefits of selling your property to us. And then they get that along with the contract. So you have this whole contract package that does include the contract, but you have to understand that like you had that conversation with them over the phone, but if they're getting also something else, that lets them know that, yeah, this is the right decision, right? So when we send the contract, it's the cover letter. It's another document that says, here are all the benefits that you'll get from selling the property to us. Your standard stuff, that we have as investors. And then another one that says, hey, here's what you have to do when you sell the property to a real estate agent. And here's everything you have to do when you sell with us. And with us, it's just one thing that they have to worry about. With a real estate agent, all these other things.
There's a bunch of them. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then the contract. So we don't take it for granted that just because they've said yes, that the work isn't done yet, right? You have to kind of make sure. So that's the other thing with the contract is we send them a contract package. And then if it's somebody, I always say that whenever you send a contract to the seller, do what's convenient for them, not for you. It may be convenient for you to send by DocuSign, but if the owner isn't tech savvy or would struggle with it, then I would just, put together a package that includes a copy of the contract, includes a return envelope with priority mails. You can do it that way, or you can do a mobile notary, whatever works. But that's the other thing. For the most part, we do the HelloSign. The other thing I was going to mention is, I try when it comes, and I love your opinion on this. When it comes to boots on the ground, I always look at it from the perspective of who is the most competent person that you can get at the best price. Yeah. Right. So the most expensive person that you can get is a wholesaler, because they're going 50% of the deal, right? Yeah. A wholesaler who knows what they're doing, who has a list, they're going to want 50% because they're not going to get out of bed. The mobile notary might be the cheapest way, right? Because you can pay them $100. They're used to going out to somebody's house for $100, right? So the question is, like my preference, and I don't know curious to know what your preference is. A realtor sometimes can be problematic because if they don't understand our business,
that's what I've seen.
Then they could say all kinds of crazy stuff, and next thing you know, all hell breaks loose. Right?
Next thing you know, you're in a jam.
Yeah, right. A wholesaler, somebody who's in that area who is looking to get their wholesaling mojo going, and they don't mind, like, hey, look, you're gonna make, you can offer them a little bit more. You're gonna get, I'll pay you $100 for going out on the property. I might need you to go out and do a couple more things. And then when the deal closes, I'll pay you another $300 or whatever. But guess what? You get to go out in the street. You get to interact with sellers. You're going to get a little bit of coaching from me because I'm going to tell you what you need to say and everything else. So you're going to be better off by helping me here. So to me, that's a sell on somebody who's new in the business. And now you're getting them to go kind of be a boots on the ground, but it's a give and take. Like they're going to make some money. Not going to make as much as, say, 50% of the deal, but they're going to get some education in the process. And for them, that might be something of value. So that was the other thing I was going to mention.
Valuable for people.
Yeah. And then the other question that I had is yeah, I'm always going back to what you mentioned. I always like somebody there because, the thought of,
with the like a referee, you mean?
yeah. Now look, if it's a deal, I would agree with you. If it's a deal that I just can't seem to sell, that it is the last like Hail Mary pitch.
Yeah.
Screw it. I don't care who goes there.
Yeah.
I think this deal is gonna, go down the tubes anyway. If you don't buy it, you don't tell that to the buyer. But if you got a deal that has like some meat on the bone and you're trying to wholesale and you think you can make some money, then at that point, then err on the side of paying a little bit more. You might pay somebody $1,000. You might be like, look, I'll pay you a very small percentage of the deal, or pay you $1,000 out of the deal. But if you're going to make 20, or you're going to make a certain amount of money, then that's your insurance policy.
Your policy, yeah, it's your premium you're paying.
It's your premium to pay that nothing goes wrong and that everything is going to hold still, right? So those were kind of like my additions to the things you mentioned.
I think we just gave everyone a blueprint on how to do a virtual deal right there. I mean, my goodness.
I think if they're good note takers and good rewinders, I think that they can put it all together.
And they can listen to this on 0.5 speed if they really want to make sure they comprehend it well.
Right. Exactly. And so then question I had is title company. Would you pick a title company for the state, or would you pick for one for every county that the property is located in?
I've done that one. You just reach out to your network. You go on Facebook and say, hey, right, I got a property in, blah, 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 USA. Anyone have a title company there? I would rather do that.
Yeah.
When I first went to Texas, for example, I had a deal under contract and I had no clue who to call because never done a deal there. Called some crappy ass title company and they were a disaster. I had to switch to another title company. But I didn't know until I found someone in the area who told me who to go to. So
right.
For sure. Reach out to your network. Someone on Facebook or on Bigger Pockets or even on this YouTube channel will probably know if it's in a, it doesn't even matter. I mean, most people are going to know who to go to, assuming your house is not, in the, the sticks of Alaska. Maybe that's the only exception.
The other thing is on the groups, just for on the buyers, what you can do is you can go, let's say if you go to Florida, let's say if I'm looking for buyers in a particular area and I go into a group, Florida cash buyers, right? Then what you can do is search in that group. You can kind of use this as a way to, I got to come back on one thing that we didn't cover, which is comps. But one thing I noticed is you could do a couple things. You can search your city or the county that the property is located in and do a search to see if anybody else had posted a property before in that group. And if you posted a property before in the group, chances are they probably put their email address in the thread. So all of a sudden now you got emails and phone numbers of buyers right there without even having to post. Because you can say, I noticed somebody posted about a property in Melbourne the other day and you put your email address. I do have something if you are interested in it. So that could be a shortcut. Because in any particular state, you might have, a certain number of groups or whatever the area is. And I think that the groups nowadays are very invaluable for just getting buyers like that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you could, with Facebook and with all these networks, I mean, you can, especially if you have a true deal, I mean, that's priced right, you're going to sell that in a second.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I mean, there's so many times where I did a deal in New York, never even, never saw the house, never met the seller. Actually, the guy came to the closing table with 20 grand to have me buy his house.
Wow. Okay. That's a motivated seller. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I got so many of those examples, but I think that too with the buyers, if you can go into those groups and leverage that, that's even easier than going on to like Kent Clothier software, PropStream, and like cold calling. I mean, that works too, but I mean, if you got someone reaching out to you, you already have the upper hand.
Yeah. The thing I was going to, one thing I was going to make a comment about a mindset thing. But before I do that, comps. What do you, if you're going to be running comps in Florida, to figure out what a property is worth, what's one free, what would you use, free or paid?
Redfin, without a doubt.
Which one?
Redfin.
You would use Redfin as opposed to Zillow.
No, I like Redfin better. Redfin is in most of the major markets. I've gotten leads down in Tampa Bay, and Redfin was really good. because Florida's not a non-disclosure state either, so you can get good data
Yeah.
there. Redfin, and I'd use PropStream too. PropStream's got pretty good comps. I mean, there's MLS comps in there for apparently. I'm a big believer in PropStream. I love that software. So Redfin's probably first and foremost, and then if Redfin, let's say I think it's probably worth 250 according to Redfin, I'd go into PropStream and see what kind of I could find on there. If a lot of those comps are the same, I got a pretty good indication that it's probably worth about 250. Zillow I use for like a rough rule of thumb. Best time I use Zillow, for example, is like when we're racking the shotgun and we got leads coming in and we got a lot of people to talk to and not a lot of time. We go on Zillow, we say, hey, listen, we figure 70% of this number minus the 30K rehab. We'd be around whatever, 250. Is that even worth considering? So we use Zillow just as a rule of thumb. But if we're really pinning down a serious prospect, I'll go on to Redfin. I'll find 2 or 3 houses, go on PropStream if I need to, and I'll go get comps from there.
So I use Zillow, but I use it in a different way. So let's say I have a property that's worth, that I think the ARV is 185,000.
Okay.
And so then now let's say that I think that I'm going to make an offer. Let's say that I can get that deal for 125, and I think I'm going to try to go and these are just numbers, so they may not, but let's say I think I'm going to sell that. I'm going to offer it to wholesale it for 135. The way I use Zillow is I plug in the zip code of the property. So I want to just be able to know, like in my Zillow screen, what the what that area is. And then what I'll do is I'll do a search on active properties on the price point that I'm thinking of offering it to other real estate investors.
Interesting.
Because then I want to know, because if somebody's buying a deal from me as a wholesaler, it means that my deal has to be better than what's active on the MLS. Otherwise, they would have bought something on the MLS.
On the MLS, exactly.
Right. So if I go there and all of a sudden I see there's a bunch of handyman specials at 125,000, and it's similar to my deal, then I'm going to say, well, gee, no, that means my deal is too expensive, because they can go out in the open market and they can buy a handyman. So I use it more for not the value, but for figuring out like the different ranges. So I'm looking
for.
Right. Like I'm looking at, okay, if I know that if I'm going to say make an offer of 115, or so, on the low end, then I'm going to do a search and I'll do the filtering, and I want to know everything in that, small, whatever, half a mile or a mile. I want to know everything from, 85,000 to 125, just to see what's out there, because then that gives me a gauge to know, like, okay, this is what handymans, this is a foreclosures for sale, it's a HUD home. And like, if I'm, offering a house for, if I'm thinking I'm going to wholesale it for 135, but I notice that there's 3 handyman specials at 125 that are larger than mine, so all of a sudden that lets me know that, that my offer might be too rich.
Yeah, that's not going to sell. No, that's interesting, because then you're basically trying to be the cheapest house that's below Zillow or whatever you're finding, and a buyer's going to be like, holy cow, that's lower than all the other ones. That's an interesting way to look at it from a wholesale perspective, and it's like starting with like your buyer and what they're willing to pay for it, and then you kind of back to the seller.
Right.
That's interesting. No, that's smart, and that's especially when you're doing it virtual, because every market certainly has its similar, differences. Like Florida versus
Exactly.
New York. That's interesting. That's smart as hell, man.
Yeah. So the comment I was going to make is just in general about virtual wholesaling is if I can give one piece of advice, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, is that you have to allow things to get messy. Because if you think about it, right, the perfect shitstorm is that you have a property tied up, and that the owner, and you probably put in the contract and you send a buyer, and all of a sudden the buyer rats you out and starts to talk to the seller, and that becomes this whole mess of like this gigantic, like almost like those soap operas that you see on TV. It's like, it's hairy. And I think that what happens is with most people is when they're virtual wholesaling is they want to make sure that all their ducks are lined up perfectly in a row. And it's such a fluid process. And what happens is that when you don't, and understanding that you're going to have like shit that goes bad. Like you're going to have where the seller says, oh, the buyer just told me you're trying to sell it to him for this much. And now you got to work around that conversation. So I think that the ability to just be okay with that things in the beginning are going to get really messy, and you're going to have to unravel them, and you're going to have to figure that out. I think that to me is like the big mindset shift.
that's a key part of, I mean, that is probably one of the most important things, you've covered on this call today. It's like, if I were to wait for everything to be perfect before I started going into a remote market, I would have never deal, because like, there's I have so many examples of like deals getting hairy where like, whether there was a seller getting pissed off or a buyer, or like I have so many of those, and I think the key there, Cris, I love how you mentioned that. It's like, if you expect that to happen and you understand when it happens, that's normal. You're not going to be hit by it. You're going to be like, oh, this is a normal issue. Let's solve the damn problem. That's why we get paid in the beginning. That's why we get paid in the first place, to solve problems.
Right.
But if you go in there and you're like, oh my God, I knew this wouldn't work. Oh my God, you're going to be screwed. But if you go in there with the right expectations, you're going to be in a good shape, and you're going to have the experience too,
So I have a last question is, if you're a new real estate investor, I was thinking about how to best phrase this is that, she always ask me, people, should I stay in my local market? Should I go virtual? And that's a question I always get. What is I'll tell you what my opinion is, but I'll tell you my opinion afterwards. And our opinions can differ.
Okay.
But if a new investor says, hey, should I stay in my local market? Or that question always presupposes that their market is not good. Are there instances where you would say definitely do virtual versus not? Like, I know if somebody's in New York and they're starting out brand new, they don't have any money for deposits, you're going to be like, get out of New York fast.
Don't go to New York. No,
right.
That's a good question. Let me give you the answer. So I think it really depends on where you are. If you're and I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine over dinner last week, and he wants to get into real estate, and he's in San Diego. And I'm like, listen, man, if with enough time, you could do a deal in San Diego. I'm not doubting that. But I said, honestly, with the way technology is now, you can do this anywhere. It's not a big difference. So the real answer for everyone here is, depending on where you are, if you are in, San Francisco, or you're in San Diego, or you're over in New York, or you're maybe even in Miami, it is possible to do deals there. But if you're a newbie and you have no business, sales, marketing, or entrepreneur experience, it's almost like you're trying to run on an uphill treadmill instead of running on a treadmill that's straight.
Yeah.
So it's going to be that much harder to get up to the damn freaking goal. So you should probably consider getting some experience in a virtual market, where there's less resistance, where it's a cheaper cost per lead, where you don't have to be a ninja negotiator. Because, so I think depending on where you are, and if you're in these major areas, it would be actually easier to do it virtual. However, if you're in a market where it's not too competitive, I think you can do a deal or two in your backyard and see if you like it. And then if another thing, like Joe McCall talks about this, you could do virtual deals in your own market. You could live in Miami and do virtual deals. You just never have to go to the house. So that's my answer. I hope that wasn't too wishy-washy for you.
No. The second follow-up question, and again, you don't have to say what if somebody raises their hand, they're starting out brand new, and they say, okay, fine, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a virtual market because I live in California. Is there one particular marketing method that you recommend for beginners? And I say that I'm not trying to bait you. I don't want you to say anything that you think, not that you would, that you feel like, oh, I want to say something that Chico would agree with me. So I think that we may disagree here, but it's okay. Is there one method that you would recommend?
I'm going to think about this one question here. If you're that really depends on the money thing. I think if you have no money whatsoever, I would probably go on to PropStream, and I would go into a market, and I would probably grab a list of vacant properties that have been owned for 20 plus years. This is to get your first deal. So I'm not saying, I'd probably get that list, and if you're flat broke, your cell phone is free and PropStream's $100 a month.
Right.
But once you have some money, I think you got to be doing advertising. And I think right now, mail will work if you do it over time. But Facebook, and I know this is,
Yeah, I'm not trying to bait you. You could say no.
I will say Facebook does get good leads. It does get good leads, and it's cheaper. You can the reason I'm saying this, and I say before you do Facebook, if you have no cash, maybe go get a list of houses and call them to get your first deal, or you can't pay someone to do man signs since you don't have no cash. Once you have money to spend on a budget, direct mail and Facebook is where I would go. the benefit to Facebook is going to be you're going to get a cheaper lead most likely, and you're going to be able to screw up a lot more at a cheaper way, assuming your cost per lead is, what they regularly are on Facebook. Direct mail, it's going to work, but you have to have the right expectations. You got to have really like a 6 to 12 month mindset. And it's going to be a little bit more expensive, most likely, to generate those leads. So I think it's a toss up between mail and Facebook. After you get your first deal, if we're going to do this virtual, you can pull a list on PropStream literally from anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. So my take is on virtual is if you are in if you are in the Northeast, New York, and those markets, don't do that. I would say probably stay away from California, right? Right. That's number one. And then number two is I would, just based on the results that I'm seeing, is I would have somebody target the entire state.
Okay.
And so if you're in Florida, if you're in Miami, or if you're in Tampa, it doesn't matter where you're at, you're going to run ads for the entire state of Florida. So you're going to get leads very cheap, which if you're brand new, if you're going to mess up, I'd rather you mess up on $8 leads and $40 or $50 leads all day long. So that's the thing I would mention is, to me, my that's like my go-to advice, just because of what I've seen with students. And for me, I would love for you to target the whole state, and I love to hear what the results from that, because I know that you're going to get cheaper leads, and I know that you're going to get opportunities on different areas that you may not have thought about, and that they'll pan out for deals. But and you knowing what you know and your experience with virtual, it'll be a no-brainer for you.
I just put a message in my Evernote to give Steven a call to have him start running in New York State. I just typed that in.
Okay. And if you need advice on that, let me know. And I think, well, I mean, my hands are exhausted because I tried to squeeze as much as I could out of you, but I think that's it. But guys, couple things. Number one is I'm going to put in the description a couple things. Number one is Greg has a great podcast. I'll put the link on there. Definitely, guys, you subscribe to his podcast and show him some love. He has some great episodes I've listened to. I'm a subscriber. I don't listen to every one of them, but there's whatever you don't go to when you go to the buffet, you don't eat everything. You might get what you like.
Yeah, I pick and choose.
Right. Yeah, you pick and choose. But he has a great. And then, is there one social media platform that you prefer, or?
Instagram. I think Instagram, I'll be the most responsive. Facebook, there's just too much crap on there.
Yeah.
For advertising, it's good, but for like me going on there, it's just a disaster. Instagram is Grego, GREGO _37. I post a lot of stuff on there.
I'll put that in the description. We'll get that from you. Put that in the description. So give him a follow on Facebook and show him some love. Really appreciate our time together. I think it goes both ways. I learned some things. I think you learned some things. It was kind of like a mini class on virtual wholesaling.
I love it, man. This was super fun, man. I feel like we're like, we're not face to face, but next time I'm in Florida or you're in California, we'll definitely connect.
100%. Maybe I try to go to California every summer. So
the damn Miami heat, huh?
Huh?
You get out of that damn Florida heat.
Florida is so much better when you don't spend it in July and August here.
It's so hot.
Because it's so hot. It is so hot.
So damn hot. You got no sometimes.
I think that's what makes it more enjoyable, because the last couple of summers, I'm like, oh, no wonder I like it here so much. I haven't been here when it's so hot. And I love California, really. I really enjoy being over there. So you're in San Diego, so hopefully we'll get a chance to, I think the last time I was there, but you were out of town.
I was out of town, I think, yeah. So.
Yeah. Or if you make it down here, definitely let me know. For sure.
Call from me or text after our conversation.
Perfect. Well, guys, again, really appreciate it. Let me know. Make a comment here. Let me know if you found this video helpful. There might be a couple other videos, I'm sure, that will pop up here. More information about virtual wholesaling and Facebook ads. And again, thank you, Greg, and thank you everybody for listening. And I'll see you in the next one.